The letter arrived on a Tuesday in March, forwarded 3 times before it finally found me in my apartment in Minneapolis. Cream-colored envelope, law firm letterhead from Bemidji, a town I'd never visited, nearly 300 miles north. I almost threw it away. I get a lot of junk mail, but something about the weight of it, the way my name was handwritten across the front in neat, professional script, made me pause. I opened it standing in my kitchen, coffee going cold on the counter. Dear Ms. Voss, it began. We regret to inform you of the passing of your father, Thomas Edward Voss, on February 17th of this year. Cause of death, myocardial infarction. He was found in his residence by a postal carrier after 3 weeks. As his sole living heir, you are entitled to his estate, which consists of a single property located on the Canadian border, approximately 40 miles northwest of our offices. Per Mr. Voss's explicit instructions, you must visit the property within 30 days of this notification, or ownership will revert to the state of Minnesota. We understand this may come as a shock, given the estrangement. Your father left a personal letter for you to be retrieved at the property. He was quite insistent, in his own words, that you read his letter before entering the cabin. Please contact our office to arrange access. I read it twice, then a third time. My father, dead for 3 weeks, alone in some cabin I'd never known existed. We hadn't spoken in 14 years, not since I was 18, and told him I never wanted to see him again after what he did to my mother's memory, the way he'd just vanished from my life when I needed him most. I'd thought he was living in Nevada, maybe Arizona, somewhere warm and far away, not Minnesota, not 40 miles from the Canadian wilderness. But here it was, an inheritance, a cabin, and a warning. I called the law firm the next morning. The paralegal who answered sounded tired, like she'd been expecting my call but dreading it. She gave me directions, GPS coordinates, warned me about the lack of cell service past Baudette. Your father was very specific about the letter, she said. He made us promise, 3 times, actually in 3 separate meetings. You have to read it before you go inside. Those were his exact words. Why? I asked. Long pause. He didn't say, just that it was important, life or death important. I should have pressed her, I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. I just thanked her, hung up, and started packing. The drive north took 9 hours. I left before dawn, watched the city lights fade into farmland, then endless pine forests that grew denser and darker the farther I went. The towns got smaller, Brainerd, Bemidji, Baudette, until there were no towns at all, just 2-lane highways cutting through wilderness. My phone lost signal around 2 p.m. The GPS held for another hour, then flickered out. I had to use the printed map the law firm had mailed me, roads marked in red pen, handwritten notes in the margins, turn at the Rusted Mailbox. Follow the dirt road 6.3 miles. You'll see the solar panels first. The sun was setting when I finally found it. The mailbox was there, leaning at a 45-degree angle, no name on it, just a faded number. For the dirt road was barely a road, 2 tire tracks separated by tall grass winding through birch and pine. My sedan bottomed out twice. I crept forward, hands tight on the wheel, watching the trees close in on both sides. Then, through a gap in the branches, I saw them, solar panels, dark and angled on a roof that jutted above the tree line. The cabin. I parked in a clearing about 50 yards out and sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. The cabin was small, maybe 800 square feet, dark wood siding weathered to gray, a stone chimney on one side, windows with heavy curtains drawn, a porch with 2 wooden chairs facing the forest, and on the porch, weighted down by a rock, a single envelope with my name on it. Demo. My father's handwriting. I recognized it from old birthday cards I'd kept in a shoebox under my bed, cards he'd sent when I was little, before everything fell apart. I got out of the car slowly, boots crunching on gravel. The air was cold, colder than it should have been for late September. My breath misted. The forest was silent. No birds, no wind, just the faint creak of the porch boards as I stepped up. I picked up the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper folded once. I unfolded it. Demo. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for leaving when you were young. I'm sorry for not explaining. I was protecting you from this place. I thought if I stayed here, if I kept it contained, you'd never have to know. I was wrong. Do not enter the cabin until you've read the rules. They're inside, taped to the kitchen table. Read them, follow them. I know you're angry at me. I know you think I abandoned you. But I was protecting you from what this place do. As to our family. The cabin is bound to our bloodline. It always has been. Now that I'm gone, it's yours. I'm so sorry. Read the rules first, Emma, please. Dad. I stared at the letter. The light was nearly gone now, the sun just a red smear through the trees. The cabin was dark, waiting. I looked at the door, heavy wood, iron handle, old deadbolt. My father's keys were in the envelope too, attached to a loop of frayed string. I should have listened. I should have read the rules first, like he said. But I was exhausted. I was angry. And I was tired of being told what to do by a man who'd left me when I was 8 years old and never looked back. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The cold hit me first. It was colder inside than outside, like the cabin had been holding its breath, waiting. I fumbled for a light switch, found one by the door, flicked it. A single bulb overhead buzzed to life. The interior was sparse, wood stove in the corner, small kitchenette, a table with 2 chairs, a doorway leading to what I assumed was a bedroom, and on the wall above the stove, mounted on a plaque, a taxidermy elk head, huge, majestic. Its antlers spread wide, its glass eyes dark and reflective. I dropped my bag by the door and exhaled. My breath misted again. The cold wasn't just uncomfortable, it was wrong, unnatural. I walked to the wood stove, checked it, empty, no fire laid. I'd have to do that later. First, I needed to see what my father had left me. I walked to the bedroom, small bed, neatly made, a nightstand with a lamp and a leather journal. I picked up the journal, flipped it open. Pages and pages of my father's handwriting, cramped and obsessive, dated entries going back months. I skimmed a few. October 12th. It knows she's coming, I can feel it. The lake is restless. I tried to break the cycle. I tried to sever the line. But blood doesn't break, it only bends. November 3rd. I saw her at the window again last night. She's getting bolder. She knows I'm dying. She knows Emma will come. February 17th. I'm out of time. My heart, I can feel it failing. Emma, if you're reading this, you've already entered. I tried. I'm so sorry I failed. February 17th, the day he died. My hands were shaking. I set the journal down and walked back to the kitchen, heart pounding. And there, on the table, just like he'd said, taped down with duct tape, was a laminated card. White, professionally printed, titled in bold black letters. Lakewood Cabin Protocols, Bloodline Binding. I ripped it free and read. The rules were written in a clean, typewritten font, like something from an old government manual. 5 rules, numbered, specific. 1. Never enter the cabin after sunset without completing the threshold ritual, salt, recitation, blood offering. If you enter without it, you are open. I looked at the window. The sun was gone. It was full dark outside now. I'd entered at sunset, maybe just after. I'd entered without salt, without recitation, without blood. I was open. 2. Do not acknowledge the woman at the window. She's been looking for a daughter since 1952. The woman at the window, I glanced at the glass. The curtains were drawn, but I could see the faint outline of the forest beyond, dark and still. 3. If you hear your father's voice, answer only if he calls you by your childhood nickname. If he uses your full name, it's not him. My childhood nickname, Mzai, he used to call me that when I was little before he left. No one else ever used it. 4. The lake freezes in October. Do not walk on it, even when it looks solid. She lives underneath. The lake, I'd seen it on the drive-in, a massive black expanse beyond the trees, maybe 200 yards from the cabin. I hadn't thought much of it. 5. If you see the elk's head turn to face you, leave immediately and do not return for 24 hours. If you stay, tilde tilde. The rest of Rule 5 was crossed out. Thick black marker, applied with force, obliterating the rest of the sentence. But underneath the black, I could see faint reddish-brown stains. Dried blood. My father's blood, maybe. I lowered the card slowly and looked up at the elk head mounted on the wall. It was facing me. I froze. When I'd walked in, when I'd first seen it, it had been facing the stove. I was sure of it. The angle had been wrong for it to face the door. But now its glassy eyes were pointed directly at me. Antlers spread wide like a crown, nostrils flared in permanent stillness. I stared at it. It didn't move. Of course it didn't move. It was a taxidermy mount, decades old, probably, just an elk head on a wall, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, that it had turned while I wasn't looking. I read Rule 5 again. If you see the elk's head turn to face you, leave immediately and do not return for 24 hours. But the rule was crossed out, and I'd already violated Rule 1. I was already open. I set the card down on the table and backed away slowly, eyes on the elk. My heart was pounding now, adrenaline flooding. My system, the cabin was too quiet, too cold, and I was alone, or at least I should have been alone, but I didn't feel alone. I felt watched. I turned and walked quickly to the front door, grabbed the handle, twisted. It didn't open. I twisted harder. The deadbolt was unlocked. I'd unlocked it myself, but the door wouldn't budge. I pulled. I shoved my shoulder against it. Nothing. It was stuck or locked from the outside or something worse. I stepped back, breathing hard. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out. No signal, not even emergency calls. I was 40 miles from the nearest town, in a cabin that shouldn't be locked but was, with rules I'd already broken. I looked at the elk head again. It was still facing me. And then, very slowly, I saw its jaw move. Just a twitch, just a fraction of an inch. The kind of movement you'd miss if you blinked. But I didn't blink. I ran to the bedroom, slammed the door, shoved the nightstand against it. My father's journal was still on the bed. I grabbed it, flipped to the last entry again, read it by the light of the lamp. Emma, if you're reading this, you've already entered. I tried. I'm so sorry, I failed. Failed at what? I flipped back further, scanning entries at random. September 4th, the threshold ritual is the only protection. Without it, the cabin claims you become part of it. I've done the ritual every night for 14 years. I can't stop. If I stop, she'll come inside. September 19th, I'm too tired. My heart is giving out, I can feel it. I won't be able to do the ritual much longer. When I die, the cabin will call Emma. I've tried to stop it. I've tried to break the binding, but the blood won't let go. The blood, our bloodline, bound to this place. I set the journal down and sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what my father had been protecting me from, what open meant, what the woman at the window wanted. And then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, deliberate, 3 knocks on glass. Coming from the bedroom window. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. The tapping continued, tap, 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 rhythmic, patient, like someone politely requesting entry. The curtains were drawn over the bedroom window, heavy fabric blocking any view. I stared at them, watching for movement, for shadows, for anything. The tapping stopped. Silence. Then a voice, muffled by glass but clear enough. Emma. I went cold. Emma, sweetie, it's so cold out here. Can you let me in? The voice was soft, feminine, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. I knew that voice. I'd heard it 1,000 times in my childhood, in memories I'd buried deep. It was my mother's voice. My mother, who'd been dead since I was 8, who'd died in a car accident on a wet October road driving home from work, who I'd never gotten to say goodbye to. Emma, baby, I've been waiting so long. Your father kept me out here. He was so cruel. But you're not like him. You're kind. I can see it. Just look at me, honey, just once. My hands were shaking. I wanted to look. God, I wanted to look so badly. I wanted to pull back the curtain and see her, see my mother, even if it was impossible, even if it didn't make sense. But I remembered the rules. Rule 2, do not acknowledge the woman at the window. She's been looking for a daughter since 1952. Not my mother, not really. Emma, please. The voice was pleading now, cracking with emotion. I'm so cold. I just want to come inside. I just want to see you. Don't you miss me? I covered my ears, squeezed my eyes shut. The tapping started again, harder this time. Tap, 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 tap. Faster, louder. The window rattled in its frame. Emma. Not pleading anymore, angry. Look at me. The pounding became violent. The glass shook. I heard the curtain rod creak. I pressed myself against the far wall, hands still over my ears, eyes still closed, whispering to myself, it's not her, it's not her, it's not her. And then it stopped. Total silence. I waited 10 seconds, 20, a full minute. Nothing. Slowly I lowered my hands, opened my eyes. The window was still. The curtains hung undisturbed. I exhaled, shaking. I'd followed the rule. I hadn't acknowledged her. I hadn't looked. But then I saw it. On the window glass, visible even through the gap at the bottom of the curtain, condensation. Fog on the glass, like breath. And in the condensation, a handprint. Small, child-sized. Pressed against the inside of the glass. She wasn't outside. She was already in the cabin. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat on the bed with my back against the wall, father's journal in my lap, eyes on the door. The nightstand was still shoved against it, but I knew it wouldn't hold, not against whatever was inside this cabin with me. The handprint on the window glass had faded after a few minutes, the condensation evaporating, but I could still see it in my mind. Small fingers, a child's hand. The woman at the window wasn't a woman. She was so. Mething that had been a child once, maybe. Something that had been waiting since 1952. I flipped through the journal again, looking for answers. My father's handwriting got shakier toward the end, entries shorter, more fragmented. January 3rd, I can't keep her out anymore. The ritual is failing, or I'm failing, my heart. January 18th, she whispers through the walls now, calls for Emma. I tell her Emma isn't here. I tell her Emma will never come here. She laughs. She says blood always comes home. February 10th, I saw her face tonight. Through the window, she looks like Helen. My God, she looks exactly like Helen. Helen, the name appeared several times in earlier entries, but I hadn't pieced it together yet. I kept reading. Then, at 11:30 p.m. by my watch, I heard it. A voice from the other room, from beyond the bedroom door. Emma. I froze. Emma, I need your help. I'm hurt. My father's voice, unmistakable, the same gravelly tone, the same slight Midwestern accent. For a split second, hope flared in my chest, irrational, impossible hope that he was alive, that this was all a mistake. Then I remembered Rule 3. If you hear your father's voice, answer only if he calls you by your childhood nickname. If he uses your full name, it's not him. He'd called me Emma, not Imzai. I didn't respond. I barely breathed. The voice tried again, closer now, right outside the bedroom door. Emma Louise Voss, answer me right now. My full name, including my middle name, which I never used, which I'd told almost no one. My father knew it, of course. He'd been there when I was born, but he'd never called me by it, not once in my entire life. This wasn't him. I heard the doorknob turn, slowly, testing. The nightstand scraped against the floor as something pushed from the other side. "You ignored me, Emma. That's very rude." The voice was changing now, still my father's voice, but layered with something else underneath, something higher pitched, a child's voice speaking in unison with an adult's. "That's the first test failed, Mzai." My blood went cold. It used the nickname, but only after I'd refused to respond to my full name, like it had been testing me, like it knew the rules, like it was using the rules against me. The door creaked open an inch, 2 inches. The nightstand scraped further. I could see a hand now pushing through the gap, long fingers, too long, skin pale and waxy. "I just want to talk, Mzai. I just want to see you. Don't you want to see your father?" The door opened wider. A shape stepped into the doorway, tall, too tall, wearing my father's flannel shirt, the red and black one I remembered from childhood. But the proportions were wrong. The arms hung too low, past where the knees should be. The head was tilted at an angle that shouldn't have been possible. The face was in shadow. I couldn't see it. Maybe that was a mercy. "You ignored me when I called, but I'm giving you another chance, because I'm kind, because I remember you, little Mzai. I remember when you were born, such a beautiful baby. Your mother was so happy." The voice was fully layered now. My father's deep rumble and a little girl's sing-song tone, both speaking the same words at the same time, slightly out of sync. "But your mother's gone now, and your father's gone, and you're all alone in this cabin with me, just the two of us. Isn't that nice?" It took a step forward. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and hurled it. It hit the shape in the chest, bounced off, crashed to the floor. The bulb shattered, darkness. In the dark, I heard it laugh, both voices harmonizing. "Run, Mzai, run to the lake." I didn't think, I moved on instinct. I threw myself at the window, ripped the curtains down, unlocked the latch, shoved it open. Cold air rushed in. I climbed through, dropped 6 feet to the ground outside, landed hard, rolled. Pain shot through my ankle, but I ignored it. I ran. Behind me, I heard the window frame splinter as something much larger than me tried to follow. I ran toward the lake. The forest was black. No moon, no stars, just the faint glow of the cabin lights behind me and the massive dark void ahead where the lake waited. My lungs burned. My ankle throbbed with every step. Branches whipped my face. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, but I kept running, crashing through underbrush, stumbling over roots. Then the trees opened up, and I was on the shore. The lake stretched out before me, impossibly vast, a flat black mirror reflecting nothing. The shore was rocky, lined with dead birch trees, their white bark peeling like skin. The water was perfectly still, not a ripple, not a wave, just flat, dark glass. I stopped, gasping for breath, and looked back at the cabin. Every window was lit now, every single one, though I'd only turned on 2 lights, and in the windows I could see shapes, shadows, moving, different sizes, some tall, some short, some impossibly thin. How many things were inside that cabin? I turned back to the lake, Ying to catch my breath, trying to think. I needed a plan. I couldn't go back to the cabin, but I couldn't stay out here either. It was maybe 40 degrees, and I was in jeans and a t-shirt, already shivering. And then I noticed it. Ice. Along the edges of the shore, thin sheets of ice were forming, spreading slowly from the rocks into the water, delicate and crystalline. It was September 28th. Ice doesn't form in September, not in Minnesota, not even in northern Minnesota. The water should still be warm from summer. I crouched down, touched the ice. It was real, solid, cold enough to burn my fingertips. Rule 4 echoed in my mind, The lake freezes in October. Do not walk on it, even when it looks solid. She lives underneath. October was 3 days away. I heard a sound from the water, soft at first, then louder, rhythmic, wet. Breathing. Something was breathing beneath the surface. I backed away from the shore, eyes on the water. The ice continued to spread, faster now, sheets connecting, thickening, and then I saw it. A hand. Pale, waterlogged, small, maybe a child's hand, pressing up against the underside of the ice from below. Then another hand, and another. Dozens of them, all different sizes, all pressing against the ice, all trying to push through. The breathing got louder, not one voice, many voices, overlapping, in sync. The ice cracked. A spiderweb of fractures spread across the surface, and I saw faces now, blurry and distorted beneath the ice. Children's faces, women's faces, all staring up at me with white, dead eyes. The ice shattered. Hands burst through the surface, reaching, grasping. Water splashed. I heard voices, garbled, waterlogged, speaking words I couldn't understand. I turned and ran back toward the cabin. I had no choice. The lake was worse. I didn't go back inside the cabin. I couldn't. Instead, I circled around to the back, looking for another way, another option. That's when I saw the root cellar. A wooden hatch set into the ground, partially hidden by overgrown weeds. I yanked it open, climbed down a ladder into darkness, pulled the hatch shut above me. I fumbled for my phone, used the flashlight. The cellar was small, concrete walls, shelves lined with old canning jars and supplies, and in the corner a filing box. Cardboard, weathered, labeled in my father's handwriting, "Family records, do not open." I opened it. Inside were letters, photographs, genealogy charts, old newspaper clippings. I spread them out on the floor, hands shaking, and started piecing it together. The first document was a death certificate. Helen Marie Voss, age 7, died January 14, 1952. Cause, drowning. Location, Lakewood, Minnesota. A photograph was clipped to it. A little girl in a white dress, dark hair in braids, smiling at the camera. The back of the photo had a note, "Helen, Christmas 1951, 1 month before." I kept digging. A newspaper article from January 1952, local woman institutionalized after daughter's death. Iris Voss, 34 of Lakewood, has been committed to the state hospital following the drowning death of her daughter, Helen, age 7. Authorities report Mrs. Voss attempted a winter baptism ritual on the frozen lake. The ice gave way. Helen's body has not been recovered. Mrs. Voss claims the lake demanded a daughter. My hands went numb. Iris Voss, my great-grandmother. Helen Voss, my grandmother, dead at 7. I kept reading, pulling out more documents. A family tree, hand-drawn by my father, going back 5 generations. Every generation had a note in red ink. Iris Voss, 1980-1987, drowned Helen, saw the woman at age 12. Helen Voss, 1945-1952, drowned by mother, never found. Margaret Voss, my grandmother on my mother's side, no connection to lake, safe. Thomas Voss, my father, 1968-2025, inherited cabin age 18, haunted for 40 years, tried to break cycle. Emma Voss, me, 1993, next in line. At the bottom of the chart, my father had written in shaky handwriting, "The lake doesn't forget, the bloodline doesn't break. Helen has been waiting 70 years for family to come home." I found a final letter tucked into an envelope marked "For Emma, only if I fail." I opened it. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you've entered the cabin. You've probably already broken Rule 1. You're open now, I'm so sorry. Here's what you need to know. Our great-grandmother, Iris, drowned her own daughter, Helen, in the lake in 1952. She claimed she heard voices telling her the lake demanded a sacrifice, a daughter. Helen's body was never found. Since then, every woman in our bloodline has been haunted. My mother saw the woman at the window when she was 16. She killed herself rather than come back to this cabin. I inherited it when I turned 18, and I've been fighting it ever since. The woman at the window is Helen. She's been 7 years old for 70 years. She's angry, she's lonely, and she wants family. You can break the cycle, Emma, but only by giving her what she wants, acknowledged. G meant you have to look at her, you have to invite her in, you have to speak her name. Then you have to ask her what she needs to rest. I couldn't do it, I was too afraid. I isolated myself here, did the threshold ritual every night, kept her out. But I knew when I died she'd call you, because you're the last one, the last Voss daughter. I'm sorry I left you when you were 8. I was trying to protect you from this. I thought if I stayed away, if I never spoke to you, the cabin wouldn't know you existed. But blood doesn't work that way. Face her, Emma. It's the only way to end this. I love you, I always have. Dad. I sat in the cold cellar, surrounded by the ghosts of my family, and realized the truth. This wasn't a haunting. It was an inheritance. And I was the heir. I climbed out of the cellar as the first light of dawn broke over the trees. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the night reading my father's records, his journals, his desperate attempts to understand what had bound our family to this place. And now I understood. The cabin wasn't just haunted. It was a keeper, a warden, a place that held something that shouldn't exist, a drowned child who'd never been allowed to rest, who'd been waiting 7 decades for someone to acknowledge her pain. My father had run from that responsibility. He'd locked himself in this cabin, performed his rituals, kept Helen at bay, but he'd never faced her. He'd never asked what she needed. And now it was my turn. I walked back to the cabin slowly. The front door was still closed, but I knew it would open now. I was expected. I was choosing to return. Inside, the cabin was quiet. The shapes I'd seen in the windows were gone. The elk head on the wall faced the stove again, as if nothing had happened. But I could feel the weight in the air, the waiting. I found the supplies in the kitchen cupboard, exactly where my father's journal said they'd be. 7 white candles, a container of salt, a kitchen knife, clean and sharp. I read the ritual instructions again, written in my father's handwriting on a torn page. Light 7 candles in a circle, pour salt along the threshold, speak her name 3 times, cut your palm and let 3 drops of blood fall on the threshold. She will enter, you will see her, then you must ask, what do you need to rest? Do not deviate, do not run. My hands were steady as I set up the candles. I arranged them in a circle on the floor just inside the front door. I lit them one by one. The flames didn't flicker. The air was too still. I poured the salt carefully, a thin white line across the threshold, connecting the doorframe. Then I stood in the center of the circle and spoke. Helen Voss. My voice didn't shake. Helen Voss. The candles grew brighter. Helen Voss. I picked up the knife, pressed the blade against my palm, drew it across in one quick motion. Blood welled up, hot and red. I held my hand over the threshold and let it drip. 1 drop. 2 drops. 3. The cabin shuddered, not an earthquake, something deeper, like the building itself was exhaling. The front door swung open on its own. Standing in the doorway, backlit by grey dawn light, was a little girl. Age 7, dripping wet, white dress clinging to her small frame, torn and muddy, her hair hung in dark, stringy clumps. Her skin was pale, fish-belly white, bloated from decades underwater, and her eyes were white, completely white, No pupils, no iris, just cataracts thick and milky. She smiled. You finally looked. Her voice was small, sweet, the voice of a child who'd never gotten the chance to grow up. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But I didn't. I stayed in the circle. I met those dead white eyes. "Hello, Helen," I said. Her smile widened. Helen stepped over the threshold, over the salt line, over my blood. She moved like water, smooth and flowing, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the wooden floor. She stopped just outside the circle of candles and tilted her head, studying me. "You're Emma," she said, "Thomas's daughter. He talked about you in his sleep. He dreamed about you." I swallowed hard. "I need to ask you something." "I know," Helen said. "The ritual. Fathers always do rituals, but they never finish them. They never ask the right question. What do you need to rest?" The question felt heavy in my mouth, final. Helen's smile faded. She looked down at her hands, small and waterlogged, fingernails blue. "I need my mother to say she's sorry," she whispered. "I need her to tell me why she held me under, why she didn't pull me back up. I looked at her, you know. I looked up through the water and I saw her face and I thought she'd save me. But she didn't. She just watched. And then I couldn't breathe anymore." My chest tightened. "Your mother's dead, Helen. Iris died in 1987. "I know," Helen said. "But you're here, your family, your blood. You can say it for her." "Say what?" "I'm sorry." Behind Helen, I saw movement, the elk head on the W. All it was turning. Slowly, smoothly, the entire mount rotating on its plaque until the glass eyes were facing me directly, not facing the stove, not facing the door, facing me. Rule 5 flashed in my mind, the crossed-out rule. If you see the elk's head turn to face you, leave immediately and do not return for 24 hours. If you stay. The rest had been blacked out, but I remembered my father's blood on the card. I remembered the stains. The elk's eyes weren't glass anymore. They were real, wet, blinking. And then it spoke. Not with an elk's voice, with my father's voice. "Emma, run, don't make my mistake." I stared at it, frozen. What are you?" "The witness," the elk said. Its jaw didn't move, but the voice came from it, clear and certain. "The cabin keeps records. Everyone who enters, everyone who stays, everyone who chooses." "Chooses what?" "To face the lake or to run." Helen turned to look at the elk, then back at me. "Your father ran," she said softly. "He stayed in the cabin for 40 years, but he never came to the lake. He never finished it. So the cabin kept him, recorded him. Now he's part of the walls." The elk blinked again. "I stayed to protect you, Emma. I thought if I stayed, if I kept her contained, you'd be free. But I was wrong. The bloodline doesn't break. It only bends." I looked at Helen, at the elk, at the candles still burning in their perfect circle. "What happens if I stay?" I asked. The elk's eyes dimmed. "You become the next witness, the next keeper. You'll do the rituals. You'll keep Helen out. You'll live here alone until you die, just like I did. And then the cabin will call the next daughter." "And if I go to the lake?" Helen's smile returned. "Then you finish what Iris started. You give me what I need, and the cycle breaks." "But I'll die." "Maybe," Helen said, "or maybe you'll finally set us all free." The elk head made a sound, a low, mournful groan. "Emma, please don't go to the lake. Stay here, stay safe. I'll be here with you. We'll figure something out." But I looked at Helen's small, drowned face, and I knew the truth. There was no figuring something out. There was only the choice my father had refused to make. Helen turned toward the door. "Come with me, Emma. Come to the lake. The ice is thick enough now. It's time." She walked out into the dawn. I looked at the elk, one more time. "I'm sorry, Dad," I said. And I followed her. The walk to the lake felt longer than it should have. Helen moved ahead of me, her wet footprints disappearing almost as soon as she made them, like the forest was erasing her presence. The sun was rising, but the light was wrong, grey and flat, no warmth in it. The air smelled like iron and old water. When we reached the shore, I stopped and stared. The lake had frozen completely overnight. Thick black ice stretched from shore to shore, smooth as polished stone. It shouldn't have been possible. The temperature had barely dropped below 40 degrees, but here it was, a frozen lake in late September. Helen stepped onto the ice without hesitation. It held her weight, or maybe she had no weight to hold. She walked 20 feet out, then turned back to look at me. "Come, Emma, it's safe, I promise." I remembered Rule 4, do not walk on it even when it looks solid. She lives underneath. But Helen was she, and I was already committed. I stepped onto the ice. It held. The surface was slick and cold beneath my boots, but solid. I walked carefully, following Helen's path, watching the ice for cracks. We moved toward the center of the lake, the shore growing distant behind us. I could see the cabin through the trees, small and dark, the elk head still visible in the window. "Watching." Helen stopped in the center and knelt down. "This is where it happened," she said quietly. "This is where Mama held me under. We were standing right here. She told me to close my eyes and hold my breath. She said God wanted to bless me, so I did. I closed my eyes, I held my breath, and then I felt her hands on my shoulders, pushing me down through the ice. I knelt beside her. Beneath us, the ice was clear enough to see into the water below, and what I saw made my breath catch. Bodies. Dozens of them, suspended in the dark water, frozen in place. Children, women, all in various states of decay, all wearing old-fashioned clothing, dresses from the 1940s, the 1920s, even earlier. Their eyes were open. Their mouths were open. Their hands were reaching upward, pressing against the underside of the ice. "Who are they?" I whispered. "Daughters," Helen said, "all of them. The lake has been taking daughters for a very long time, since before Iris, since before this land had a name. The water wants daughters, it always has." I looked at her. "You're not alone down there." "No," Helen said. "We're never alone. We sing to each other. We share our stories. We wait for someone to remember us." "What do you need me to do, Helen?" She looked at me with those white, dead eyes. "The Apollo. Jai has to happen here, where it happened, where Mama held me under, but Mama's dead, so you have to bring her." "I can't bring a dead woman back." "Yes, you can," Helen's voice was certain. "She's down there, Emma. She's been down there since she died in 1987. The lake keeps the guilty, the ones who fed it daughters. They drown forever. They can't stop drowning, but they can't be heard. They're underwater." My blood ran cold. "You want me to go down there? You have to bring her up. You have to make her speak the apology on the ice, where I can hear it, where we all can hear it." "I'll die, Helen. The water's freezing. I won't survive." Helen reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, so cold they burned. "Maybe," she said, "or maybe you'll finally break the curse. Free us all, free yourself." I looked down through the ice again, and there, suspended deeper than the others, I saw her. An older woman, grey hair floating around her head like a halo, wearing asylum clothes, rough cotton, institutional white. Her mouth was open, forming words over and over, bubbles escaping. "Iris Voss. My great-grandmother. Still apologizing, still drowning." I looked back toward the cabin. The elk head was still watching. My father's voice echoed in my memory, "Don't make my mistake." But I knew now what his mistake had been. He'd run, he'd hidden, he'd protected himself. And the curse had continued. I stood up, looked at Helen. If I do this, if I bring her up, you'll rest, you'll all rest. Helen nodded. We'll rest, the lake will let us go. I believed her, I don't know why, but I did. I walked to the edge of the hole Helen had indicated, a thin spot in the ice, barely visible. I could see the shapes below, pressing upward. I took a breath, and I jumped. The cold was instant and absolute. It stopped my heart for 3 full seconds. My lungs seized. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only sink. Down into black water. The lake was deeper than it should have been, impossibly deep. I kicked downward, toward where I'd seen Iris, my lungs burning, my limbs already going numb. Around me, the drowned daughters watched. Some reached out to touch me as I passed, gentle touches, curious, like they'd forgotten what warmth felt like. And then I heard it. Singing. All of them singing together. A lullaby. I recognized it. My mother used to sing it to me when I was small before the accident. Hush, little baby. But the voices were wrong, waterlogged, layered. Dozens of voices, some children, some women, some so old and distorted I couldn't tell what they'd been. The sound wrapped around me, pulled me deeper. I saw Iris below me, still mouthing words, still trapped in her eternal apology. I reached for her. My fingers brushed her arm. She turned to look at me, eyes wide and desperate. Her mouth formed words. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I grabbed her wrist, solid, real. In this place, the dead were tangible. I kicked upward, dragging her with me. She fought, not intentionally. Her body was locked in the motion of drowning, of sinking, of repeating her endless apology. But I held tight, pulled harder, kicked with legs that were losing feeling. The daughters sang louder. I looked up. The ice above was a dark mirror, reflecting nothing. I couldn't see the hole, couldn't see where I'd entered. My lungs were screaming. Black spots crept into my vision. I was going to drown here, join them, become another voice in the chorus. But then I felt something, a small hand grabbing mine. Helen. She was in the water with me, pulling, guiding. Her white eyes glowed faintly in the dark. This way, her voice said, though her mouth didn't move. Follow me. We swam, Helen leading, me dragging Iris, the singing daughters watching us pass. Up, up, through water that felt thick as syrup, through cold that was eating through my bones. And then I broke the surface. Gasped, choked, grabbed the edge of the ice. Helen was already there, standing on the solid surface, reaching down. I pushed Iris up first. The old woman's body was limp, waterlogged, but Helen grabbed her shoulders and hauled her onto the ice with impossible strength. Then she reached for me. I grabbed her hand, she pulled. I collapsed on the ice, coughing up lake water, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. Hypothermia was setting in, I could feel it. My thoughts were slowing, my limbs weren't responding right. But I'd done it. Iris was here, on the ice, above the water. Helen knelt beside her great-grandmother. The old woman's eyes were open, staring, mouth still forming those endless words. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Say it out loud, Helen commanded. Say it so I can hear. Iris's mouth stopped. For the first time in 37 years, she stopped apologizing. She looked at Helen, and she spoke. I'm sorry. Iris's voice was a rasp, waterlogged and broken, but clear. I'm sorry, Helen. I'm sorry I held you under. I'm sorry I didn't pull you up. I thought the Lake W. Antied you. I thought if I gave you to the water, our family would be blessed, prosperous, protected. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Tears ran down her face, mixing with lake water. I loved you so much, but I listened to the voices. I thought they were God. I thought I was being faithful. I didn't know they were the lake. I didn't know the lake was hungry. Helen stared at her, this woman who had killed her, This woman who had been drowning in guilt for longer than I'd been alive. "I forgive you, Mama." The words were quiet, simple. But the lake heard. Beneath us the ice cracked, not violently, gently, like something exhaling. The singing stopped. The water below cleared, became translucent, and I saw the daughters begin to sink, not struggling, not fighting, just letting go, descending peacefully into the depths, one by one. Iris looked at Helen one more time. "Thank you," she whispered. And then she faded, not sinking, just fading like mist, until there was nothing left but water on the ice. Helen turned to me. I was barely conscious. Hypothermia was shutting my body down, my lips were blue, my hands were numb, I couldn't feel my feet anymore. "You can go now, Emma," Helen said. "You broke the cycle, you did what Thomas couldn't, you faced us, you brought the apology, we can rest now." "I'm dying," I managed to say, "can't move." Helen knelt beside me. She touched my forehead with her small, cold hand. "Maybe," she said, "but maybe not. You're strong, like your father, like your grandmother, like all the Voss women. You carry us, you always have." She leaned down and whispered something in my ear. I couldn't hear it, couldn't understand. And then everything went black. I woke on the cabin porch. Sunlight, warm, real sunlight, not the flat grey dawn light. I was wrapped in blankets, dry, my clothes changed. My body ached everywhere, but I was alive, breathing. I sat up slowly, my head spun, I looked around. The lake was visible through the trees, unfrozen, normal water lapping gently at the shore, no ice, September weather like nothing had happened. I stood, shaky, and walked into the cabin. The interior was different, cleaner, brighter. The elk head was gone from the wall, just an empty plaque mount, the outline where it had been visible in the dust. The kitchen table still had the laminated rules card, but when I picked it up, it was blank, just white laminate, no words. I found my father's journal on the nightstand. The final page had new writing. I recognized his handwriting immediately. "Emma, you did what I couldn't, you faced her, you brought the apology, you broke the cycle. The cabin is yours now, but it's just a cabin, no more ghosts, no more rules, no more blood offerings. I'm proud of you. The lake will remember, but it will let you go." "Dad." I closed the journal and stood there for a long moment, alone in the cabin that had been my father's prison and was now just a building, wood and stone and glass. I packed my things, got in my car, drove down the dirt road toward the highway. But just before the cabin disappeared from my rearview mirror, I looked back. And I saw her. Standing on the porch, a little girl in a white dress, no longer wet, no longer bloated, just a 7-year-old girl with dark hair and clear eyes. "Helen." She waved. I waved back. And then she was gone. I drove for 3 hours before I stopped shaking, made it back to Minneapolis by nightfall, went to my apartment, locked the door, took the hottest shower of my life. I haven't been back to the cabin. I don't know if I ever will. But sometimes, late at night, I think I hear singing. A lullaby, voices layered and distant, like they're coming from underwater. And I wonder if the lake really let us go. Or if it's just waiting. Waiting for the next daughter. Waiting for the next apology. Waiting for the water to freeze again.